In today's video, I go through and discuss the questline for the Morag Tong faction featured in the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. The story begins with the player wandering around in either Balmora, Aldrune, or Sadrith Mora. These three towns have guild halls for the Morag Tong, and by entering inside, you can go up to and speak with some of the NPCs. By inquiring about the guild, any foot soldier will tell you a bit about its history. The faction is government sanctioned and performs varieties of executions. They only recruit those who are worthy, and any candidate must first seek out Grandmaster Enoholalu in Vivec. Heading to the big city, it isn't immediately obvious where the rest of the Morag Tong is located, and it's also not a dialogue prompt for every NPC. However, the ones that do know will relay the rumors. Apparently, they have a base somewhere beneath the arena canton. By making your way over to the district and following the rumors literally, the player ends up making their way into the canal works, and ultimately the arena storage. Here, you'll come across some rats and old crates, making you believe that there isn't much to this space. However, there is a door that's secured and trapped behind a level 25 lock. Beyond it, you'll discover a level 50 lock trap door that leads down into a hidden area. This space is a lot livelier and less neglected. Further in, you'll spot some NPCs as well as some unique looking banners. Speaking to any of them about joining the Morag Tong, they'll confirm that you found their headquarters. This is a good look for you, and they further insist on you speaking with Enoholalu. The base has some length to it, and after maneuvering up the stairwells and around the corridors, the player will stumble on the Grandmaster. Switching the story to my perspective, I spoke with him and he's ecstatic that I found the guild's base. He grants me the request to join the Morag Tong. He says that the guild's been keeping an eye on me and they like what they see. Eno remarks that my talents shouldn't go to waste and offers me a spot in the faction. Accepting it, he says that I'm on a test trial. In order to fully become a member, I must complete my first execution. Faruran Oran is my first target, and he can be found in the Elven Nations Corner Club, which is in the Halalu Plaza. Before leaving, I cast a mark in front of Eno, just for ease of access when turning in quests. Heading over to the tavern, I entered inside of the establishment and cased the place for Oran. The main floor had a couple of NPCs, but none of them were my target. There were also no dialogue options for Faruran, so I continued my search. Descending to the lower level, I located two Dunmer men, and the one on the right was my person of interest. Attempting to speak with Oran, he just said that he didn't like the way I was looking at him, and ended the conversation immediately. There are a few ways to go about the execution, and a few ways to get him to communicate with you. From my experience, I just went straight into it and got a few hits in with my spear. Faruran has incredibly low amounts of health, and that's more than likely because he's the introduction to this questline. Killing him like this gets reported as a crime, but no one in the corner club retaliates or comes to his aid. Stepping back out into the plaza, ordinators came rushing in for the arrest, but luckily for me, one of the dialogue prompts is to present the writs. This grants me a free pass in the eyes of the law. Returning back to Eno, he asks if the deed was done, and I tell him yes. He welcomes me into the faction and gives me the rundown. Any master of the Morag Tong can give me work. Occasionally, there will be special duties that I'll need to take care of, and advancement through the guild will take place once I've proven myself. Asking about more writs, Eno presents me with two, one for Odesha Yasalambal and another for Taurus Saren. For the former, someone from House Telvanni wants him dead. Eno warns me that he'll be tricky to track down. He's an Ashlander and he has a yurt somewhere on a peninsula near Sadrith Mora. As for Taurus, he can be located in Saren Manor. The manor is up in the plaza of the Redoran Canton. The next 11 or so quests can be given out by any of the masters. However, for convenience, I chose to just report to Eno. My first stop was the Redoran Canton. Heading up to the plaza and inside Saren Manor, Taurus was spotted front and center. Speaking with him, he recognizes that I'm a member of the Morag Tong, and he becomes hysterical. Similar to my experience with Faruran, Saren took 3 or so hits with my spear to kill. He fought with a wild shard blade, but he wasn't able to get my health down by much. With the first execution out of the way, I moved on to the second one. The directions that Eno gave me were based around Tel Aran's location. I took a few boat rides and ended up at Sadrith Mora. From there, I looked southwest for some land formations that jutted out. It didn't take me too long before I noticed a hut out on the shoreline. Its nameplate confirmed that it belonged to Odesha. Entering inside, the Ashlander was immediately hostile and began attacking. 3 hits with the spear and he was dead. Returning to Enno, I closed out both contracts with him and he gave me 500 gold apiece as the reward. Jumping straight into the next ones, he gave me 2 more writs. The first is on someone by the name of Serene Sadis. Sadis is apparently hiding out with other criminals in the depths of Zain Terrari. It's close to Odesha's yurt near Tel Arin. As for the other writ, it actually involves the execution of 2 people, Ethel Saloth and Adroso Vendu. They're apparently cold-blooded murderers, but given their status with House Telvanni, they're constantly getting passes with the law. This writ was made by the victims' families, and Enno says that the 2 of them could be found in temporary housing within the Telvanni Plaza. Starting with the latter, I went inside of the Telvanni canton and into the establishment. There were 4 NPCs in here, and 2 of them were the Dunmer I was looking for. Neither of them wanted to talk, as both of them cited they were busy and shooed me away. I began my execution with Ethel. I managed to take her out with 2 hits, and before Adroso could retaliate, I killed her in 3. The next contract led me back to the east coast. Enno mentioned that Sadis' location was hidden in the rocks near some steam pits and to the northwest of the Arabinimsum camp. This one took me some time to locate. The shore I arrived on had a yurt and it was guarded by some bandits, but it belonged to somebody else. There were an abundance of steam pits, and of course, this whole section is rocky. After making my way northwest of the Ashlander camp, the weather picked up and it made my search a whole lot more difficult. Eventually, I found Zain Terrari and entered inside. The cave wasn't super big and contained roughly around 5 or so bandits, including Sadis. There was some loot at the back of the cavern, which I helped myself to, and then I challenged the doomed Mur. He certainly had a lot more health and better gear than my previous targets. In the end though, he didn't really put up a very good fight, and I defeated him unscathed. The room he was trapped inside of had a few more treasures to take. Once done, I recalled back to Enno and he paid me out my reward. This time, because 3 people were executed, I received 1500 gold instead of the standard 1000. Inquiring about more writs, Enno once again presented me with 2 of them. The first is for a Dunmer man named Guril Rethoran. He's an influential member of House Redoran, but the execution must be carried out. Guril can be found within the Redoran Canton Wasteworks in the Flowers of Gold Corner Club. The second writ is for a woman named Galassa Uvain. Apparently, Uvain offended a Redoran lord, and they put a contract out on her head. She could be located within the wasteworks of the Halalu Canton, inside of the Halalu Treasury. These contracts are a little more straightforward, and I started out by going after Guril. I went into the Flowers of Gold Corner Club and began searching around. Rethoran was spotted on the lower level, and speaking with him, he started to panic that the Morag Tong had found him. He asked to be spared, but unfortunately for him, that's not an option. Unlike my other targets who caught on to me, Guril didn't fight back or even budge for that matter. He took a few more prods with my spear to kill, and maybe could have done some damage back too, but he never got the chance. Similar to my first execution, this was also reported as a crime. After wandering back out into the wasteworks, an ordinator stopped me and I showed them the honorable writs. For the next contract, I found myself in the Halalu Wasteworks and soon in the treasury. Looking around the space, I found Galassa tucked away in a back corridor. Speaking with her, she simply asked what I was doing here. Other than say Sadis, Uvain probably took the most work to execute. Even more so, another NPC from the treasury came to her aid and the 2 of them ganged up on me. After Galassa was slain, I debated killing Gerer, her companion, but it seemed too risky since I didn't have a writ for him. None of the ordinators seemed to mind Uvain's murder, so I was able to recall right back to Enno. The pay got upped from 500 apiece to 1000 apiece. Getting right into the next 2 writs, the first one was for a man named Maven Drenham. There isn't much backstory to him, and Enno just says that he could be found in the Telvanni Tower up in the Telvanni Canton's Plaza. As for the second writ, Tyr Belvane, his location is a little more muddled. He's apparently somewhere in the ruins of Shara on the southwest coast of Dagon Fel. The Drenham contract brought me back to the Telvanni Canton. Entering inside of the tower up in the plaza, there were a couple of NPCs wandering around. Speaking with them, they warned me that Maven knew the Morag Tong was coming, and he's made preparations for my arrival. Ascending up the building and making my way to the top platform, as soon as I poked my head around the corner, 3 spellcasters began attacking me. This was the first contract I legitimately had difficulty with. I was repeatedly poisoned, paralyzed, and beaten. Once I could move again, I brought the fight downstairs where I swiftly killed one of my foes. Soon, a second one slipped up, got in too close, and was defeated as well. Finally, Drenum approached, and with a few thrusts from my spear, the small Telvanni gang was eliminated. From Vivek, I knew it was time to make my way to Sheogorath. A few boat rides later, and I landed in the town of Dagon Fel. According to the instructions, the ruins of Shara were somewhere on the southwestern coast of this small island. I ventured around, killing Daedra and other enemies for quite some time. This region of Sheogorath has lots of entrances to small caves and ancestral tombs. One of the clues that Enno gave me was that there were Dwemer ruins not far from Shara. This helped a lot as I soon found the Dwarven Dome, which ultimately led me to the entrance of this tomb. This dungeon contained undead and Daedra. They guarded the many halls and walkways of this area. Fortunately, Shara wasn't too grand of a space, and before I knew it, I went up some stairs and located Belvane. Similar to the Drenum fight, he aggroed onto me immediately, and this battle was even closer than the last. Tyr was also a spellcaster, and he summoned a greater Bonewalker along with a skeleton to aid him. Given the tight quarters we were battling in, it was difficult to divide my attention between the 3 foes. The Bonewalker did a number on my strength, while the Dunmer took out massive chunks of my health. Focusing all of my efforts on Belvane, I was able to strike him down with only a sliver of my HP remaining. Casting Almalexia's Light to restore my stats, I rested up, looted the place, and returned to the Grandmaster. The payouts were the same as the prior contracts, and Enno gave me 2 more writs. Mathin Bemis was the first one. He's apparently located down in the ancestral vaults of the Halalu Canal Works. He's surrounded by a gang, so I'll likely need to take them out as well. The second one is for someone named Brilnosu Laris. She surrounds herself with outlaws and Daedra, and she's located somewhere around the Dunmer stronghold of Hlormaren. For the Bemis writ, I made my way to the Halalu Canton and descended to the Canal Works. Here, there was a door that led to the ancestral vaults, and I entered inside. Wandering around for a bit, I came across my first enemy. This foe wasn't Mathin, but the ensuing battle alerted the other gang members to our location. After killing this NPC, I turned around to spot 3 more running up at me. I held them at a choke point for quite some time. The reach on my spear allowed me to get some hits in from around the corner. Soon, I backed up and brought my attackers into a bigger space. When one would get low on health, another would step up to take their place in the fight. 2 of them were melee fighters, and the third fired bolts from her crossbow. I killed one of them, but got pinned down and comboed by the other 2. I brazenly charged in at the marksman and took her out, only now I had pinches of health remaining. Thinking this attempt was going to be a wash, I just carried out the fight, and to my surprise, bested the 4th member, who happened to be Mathin Bemis. I had to do some repairs on my gear, as well as get some rest in, so that led me to handing in my first contract a little early. As for the next writ, it brought me to the small village of Hla'od. The directions I was given had me running north along the Bitter Coast region until soon I was standing before Hlormaren. If your character has some means of levitation or leaping, this next part becomes real easy. Instead of venturing through the entire stronghold, Laris can be found atop its roof. Rising up, you'll spot the Myr wandering around. Speaking with her, she thinks I'm up to something and threatens me if I don't go away. With levitation still active, I begin attacking her and fly around. She's unable to reach me with her weapon, and her spells are of no use. Accompanying her on the rooftop is a marksman, and after attacking her, they're likely to start attacking you. Fortunately, he's far weaker than she was, and Navon goes down easily. Recalling back to headquarters, Enno pays me out my other 1,000 gold. Now, for the final quest to be given to me by any master, it turns out I had actually already completed it. The writ is for a duo of brothers, Navel and Rain Zenith. Whilst embarking on the main questline, I killed these 2 men as they were guarding something that I needed down in the lower levels of the Dren plantation. They were hostile towards me and didn't offer any dialogue. I was a much lower level at the time, and the fight was particularly challenging. They fought with jink blades, and my tactic was to enter and exit the villa so as to reset their animations. Enno is really confused to hear that the two brothers were already slain by my hand. He doesn't understand why I would do that and says that it's not the Morag Tong way. Regardless, he lets it slide and says I completed the contract, but he doesn't reward me my 2,000 gold payout. Asking for more work, Enno says that there isn't anything left to give. This is where I discovered the advancement function for the faction. Inquiring about my progress over and over again, the Grandmaster kept promoting me to new heights, catching me up on every single rank that I had missed. Making it all the way to the rank of Brother, I asked about special duties, and he brought up the Dark Brotherhood. They're apparently operating here in Morrowind, and he wants me to make contact with them. The lore goes that many years ago, the Brotherhood rebelled against the Morag Tong, and since then, they've been sworn enemies. Enno wants me to find Mian. He works at the enchantment shop in the Foreign Quarter, but also serves as a Mehrunes Dagon cultist. He likely knows how to make connections to the Brotherhood, and Enno wants me to pursue them. Personally speaking, this quest felt like a nice palate cleanser to the previous 12 executions. There's a little more story and sustenance going on here than just going in swords blazing, although I don't necessarily mind that type of gameplay either. Entering inside of the enchanters, I spoke with Mian, who claimed to not know anything about the Dark Brotherhood. After casting some charm spells on him, he felt more comfortable and confident that I wasn't a guard or informant. His contact is a Khajiit by the name of Srazami. She could be found in the plaza section of the Foreign Quarter. Seeking her out, I inquired about the Dark Brotherhood, and she asked what I wanted with them. Presented with two different prompts, I first told her that I wanted someone dead. She called me out for not knowing how to properly make contact with the faction and said that I don't deserve their services. Trying again, this time I demanded that she tell me everything about them. I was worried this response would end in a fight, but luckily she just asked what's in it for her if she chose to divulge the information. Charming her with a spell and repeating the latter prompt, she simply replied by saying that she would speak with my Grandmaster. Recalling back to Enno, I told him I made contact with someone in the faction. He said he'd be interested in meeting her on his own terms. As a reward, he hands me 2 scrolls of Anasti's Mystic Finger and 2 scrolls of Invisibility. Asking him for more special duties, he gets into more of the lore surrounding the tensions between the Morag Tong and the Dark Brotherhood. Apparently, a long time ago, the Daedric Prince Mephala made a deal with her peer, Sanguine, for 27 tokens to give to her followers. The Brotherhood took these tokens for themselves, but Enno believes Mephala has arranged for all of them to return to Vvardenfell. This leads into his next task for me, the retrieval of the Belt of Sanguine Fleetness. This is one of the many artifacts of the Webspinner, and almost all of them have fallen into the hands of the guild's enemies. The faction has tracked it down to the halfway inn in Pelagiad. A Nord sorceress named Hordis has the belt, and she may not give it up willingly. Concurrent with the special duty questline is an ongoing long-form collectibles quest called Threads of the Webspinner. The next few tasks surround the procurement of a majority of these tokens. However, the second one can be collected from the girl Retharan Writ. Retharan carried the glove of Sanguine Hornyfist. Handing it over to Enno solidifies 2 of the 27 pieces returned to the Morag Tong. The first one is called Sanguine Enterprise, and Hlaalu already has this one on his person. Making my way to the Imperial Outpost and inside of the tavern, Hordis was spotted on the upper level in one of the rooms. Speaking with her, she wonders what I'm doing here and tells me to get lost. I ready a heavy attack and kill her with 3 pokes. Taking the belt from her inventory, things get a little tricky while trying to leave. My actions are reported as crimes, and the whole inn is now on my tail. Making a hasty escape, the Imperial Legionnaires stop me outside, and I present them with my writs. Enno asks if I obtain the belt, and it gets handed back into the possession of the guild. He exclaims that soon, all of the tokens will be brought back to the Morag Tong. Asking about more special duties, Hlaalu tells me that on certain occasions, assassins from the Dark Brotherhood are honorable enough to switch sides. A person of interest has been brought forward, and Enno wants me to speak with them, a young man named Movis Darius. Darius is posing as an apprentice within the Aldrune Mages Guild Hall. The Grandmaster believes he can be persuaded into joining our cause, but otherwise he must be killed. Teleporting from the Foreign Quarter Hall to the Aldrune Hall, I spotted Darius and spoke with him. I told him he should join the Morag Tong, and he kept up with his charade. He said he was but a simple peasant who knew nothing of killing. I was prompted to end the conversation or to tell him he must join or die. Wanting to make sure I was going to get the cleanest outcome, I paused the discussion and charmed him with a spell. Resuming where we left off, I told him to join the guild or face the consequences, and Darius pondered on it. He knew the jig was up and said that he had sworn an oath to the Brotherhood. However, he knows that they aren't as honorable as the Morag Tong. All he can promise is that he'll talk to Enno. Otherwise, if that's not good enough, he dares me to try my hand at killing him. He takes off his belt and hands it to me as a sign of good faith. The belt is actually another token, the belt of sanguine denial. Returning to Enno, he jumps straight to conclusions and is happy that Movis will switch sides. He pays me out 1,000 gold and we get straight into the next job. Hlaalu informs me that Mehrunes Dagon worshippers are working with and harboring members of the Dark Brotherhood. One such cultist, Carakalmo, is my next target, but Enno wants me to give him an ultimatum. I'm to tell him that the worshippers must stop aiding the Brotherhood, or else the Morag Tong will start targeting and killing them as well. He tells me that Carakalmo can be found in Ashalma Makala, a Dajic ruin not far from Hlaaod and the ruins of Hlormarin. Returning to the fishing village, I wandered along the west coast until arriving on the outskirts of the ruin. I fought through various forms of Daedra and worshippers before being able to enter inside of the shrine. In the entrance area, I battled against a Dremora and an Altmer Knight. They put up a decent battle, but as soon as they were defeated, they were the only defenses standing in the way of Carakalmo. Approaching him, he was non-hostile, and I decided to start the conversation with a charm spell. Presenting him with the ultimatum, he quickly became offended and then aggressive, citing that no servant of Mephala would command him. He got in one really good cast that almost completely sapped me of my health. While my HP was draining, I hit him over and over again with my spear. Luck was on my side as the magical effects soon subsided and I delivered the killing blow on the High Elf. Among his belongings was the sanguine belt of martial craft. Looting the rest of the shrine, I teleported back to Enno and told him of the news. He declared war against the allies of the Dark Brotherhood and rewarded me with 1,000 gold for the execution of Carakalmo. The next token of Mephala that Enno wanted me to retrieve was the Ring of Sanguine Sublime Wisdom. He's narrowed its location down to the Dajic ruins of Ysamadan, past some Dwemer ruins, and west of Ald Velothi. He believes that the belt is currently in the possession of someone named Anel Rethelis. Taking a silt strider to Nissus, and from there, running to the tip of the West Gash, I soon came across Ysamadan. Outside of the ruins, I fought against more Daedra like Clanfears, Atronachs, and Golden Saints. Once a path to the inside was clear, I entered into the shrine and resumed the fighting. The first enemy I took out was a Daedroth. The second one was a male Dunmer. He was a spellcaster and he let off some good hits, but it didn't take too long for me to deliver the killing strike. As it turns out, this NPC was actually Anel, and he had the ring in his inventory. Taking it, I recalled back to the Grandmaster and handed Sanguine Sublime Wisdom over. It was here too that I began to hand over the other tokens I had collected prior. After making the necessary progressions and personal advancements, Anno promoted me to the rank of Master within the guild. This brought me to the same level as the other quest givers in the faction, and there were only a few more titles to achieve at this point. Asking about more special duties, Hlaalu informed me that one of the leaders of the Dark Brotherhood was here on Vardenfell. Durus Marius and his companions have taken refuge in Asurnerirran. This location is apparently in the underworks of the St. Olms district, and Enno wants me to execute everyone inside. Heading over to the canton and descending below the canal works, it turns out I had gone down here once before and already aggroed the guard outside. As a lower level mage, she gave me a lot of issues, and I wasn't able to best her. Wouldn't you know it, switching to more of a battle mage role, having better gear, and being a higher level works wonders, and I was finally able to beat this once powerful enemy. Entering inside of the shrine, I was brought to a medium-sized room and immediately faced with two threats. Behind them was a Mehrunes Dagon statue. I juggled with staggering each of them until both lay dead on the floor. Moving not even a foot forward, a Dunmer clad in armor came rushing in and began his assault. He was certainly stronger than the previous two foes, as he hit harder and had a lot more health. The fight really came down to the wire for me, and I took a risk by letting off my most powerful destruction spell. Normally, it's a miracle if the spell succeeds, but I was lucky enough to see it land and sap his health before he can get all of mine down. I wasn't tipped off by the name at first, but I was surprised to see that Durus Marius was the lackey Imperial who died pretty early on. Looting the bodies, I noticed that both Durus and his Dunmer friend, Raylis, had 2 tokens each on their person. With 4 more threads of the Webspinner in hand, I went back to Enno and told him of the executions. He was pleased and rewarded me with 2,000 septims, to which I then handed over the 4 artifacts. Asking for more special duties, Grandmaster Enno Halalu gives me my final command. He tells me that the Night Mother of Vardenfell's Dark Brotherhood has retreated to the ruins of Ald Sotha. I'm to find Severa Magia in the Daedric stronghold and execute her. As an aside, I was curious about this topic and found that there's a lot of discourse and debate surrounding the term Night Mother and Severa Magia's actual title. In Oblivion and Skyrim, we know the Night Mother as a supernatural omniscient corpse. However, Morrowind plays her off as being a regular person. Do you think the concept of the Night Mother was retconned for future installments? Was the Grandmaster mistaken on Severa's role? Did he actually mean to call her the Listener? Or do you think they were meant to be the same title in this series? I'm very curious on other opinions about this. Arriving at the ruins, the outside was being guarded by a couple of Atronachs. Clearing the way, I entered into the shrine and began my descent. Killing off a Dremora, I was able to make my way directly into the lower level of Ald Sotha. Down here, I fought off 1 more Dremora Lord, and then quickly spotted the Night Mother. I got into her line of sight and the battle had begun. She summoned a Daedroth to defend her, and I was worried about becoming overwhelmed. I retreated to a choke point in the ruins, and held down the attackers in a narrow walkway. The Daedroth was defeated, and I started to get some work in on Magia. She really wasn't too difficult to beat, and after repeatedly prodding her with my spear, the Night Mother was slain. On her person, she held 3 tokens of Mephala, a ring, a glove, and an amulet. Recalling back to Enno, I informed him of Magia's death, and he was really pleased to hear it. He gifted me the Black Hand's dagger, which is apparently a ritualistic blade handed down from one Grandmaster to another for generations. It's Daedric in nature and has the enchantments of absorb health for 10 to 25 points for 30 seconds, as well as blind for 10 to 50 points for another 30 seconds. The next portion of this questline is the player's last chance to collect all 27 threads of the Webspinner and then hand them over to Enno. Otherwise, the ultimate reward for this collectibles quest is forfeit, although the tokens themselves are plentiful as a prize. This is arguably the lengthiest part of the entire story, as it involves a lot of dungeon exploration and a costing of NPCs. Various tokens can be found in previously visited spaces like Ald Sotha and Ysamadan. Others are in completely uncovered regions like Ebernanit, Asarnatamat, and Indoranyan. A few of the artifacts are even carried by random NPCs placed around the civilized areas of Vardenfell. Shothera the Khajiit holds the amulet of sanguine glib speech. She can be found at Thongar's trade house in Kuul. Another is Glarank Grashula, who can be found at the Gateway Inn in Sadrith Mora. One more is the Shoes of Sanguine Leaping. These are carried by Dro Zamar in Canal South 3 within the St. Delvin canton of Vivek. These NPCs make no mention of having the items on their person, and only through attacking and killing them would you ever really know. Once all of the threads have been procured and handed back to Enno, he'll give you confirmation that the job is complete, and he says that you'll be blessed by Mephala's skill. It's a spell that gives you Chameleon for 50 points and fortifies your attack for 10 points for 60 seconds. According to the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, this is the only way to acquire the Fortify attack effect when creating custom spells. From here, I advanced to the rank of Exalted Master. In order to be granted this title, I had one of the guild's preferred skills at or past level 80, and 2 of them at level 30. Also, my attributes of agility and speed met or exceeded level 34. Asking for more special duties, Enno tells me that he thinks I have what it takes to be the faction's new Grandmaster. Historically, a new Grandmaster is made when the old one has been honorably slain in battle. However, Enno gives me the option to let him retire peacefully, and with that, I would fully assume the title anyways. I'm prompted to let him go or to kill him. Challenging him to combat, Enno Halalu certainly has a decent amount of health, but he doesn't hit very hard, nor does he use spells of any kind. Again, for me personally, there wasn't much difficulty with this one, and upon his death, the real treasure was presented. In his inventory, Enno held every single thread of the Webspinner. All 27 tokens were for the taking, each one providing a different constant effect. As Grandmaster, there are only 4 quests left, and they're given to the player by the other masters of the guild halls. They should also only be started once the main questline for Morrowind has been completed, as some of the contracts interweave with essential NPCs. Heading to Balmora and speaking with Athasi Rilvain, she presented me with 2 of the writs right out of the gate. One of them was for Dram Barrow, a council member for House Hlalu. All she tells me is that he's hiding out somewhere in Vivec. The second writ she gives me is for Mistress Thorana, the councilwoman for House Telvanni. Athasi calls her dangerous and unstable, and tells me that she lives in the tower of Tel Brenora. Beginning with Dram, because I've completed the main questline and at the very least became Hortator, I knew exactly where he was. He's hiding out in the St. Olm's haunted manor. I located him in one of the rooms and shut the door behind me. Casting Frenzy, he's actually a fairly weak opponent, but it's the crowd he runs with that are quite dangerous. He's heavily guarded, and I found it very easy to get overwhelmed during this fight. My tactic eventually evolved into killing him and then recalling right out of there to escape my otherwise grim fate. As soon as Dram died, I received a rather chilling and frightening message. It said that the threads of prophecy have been severed, and if I don't reload a save, I'll be forced to live in this doomed world that I'd created. Apparently, that message is given to the player regardless of main questline progress, so it can just be dismissed. Speaking with Rilvain, I told her about Barrow's execution, and she rewarded me with 3,000 gold. The next person I sought out was Mistress Thorana in Tel Brenora. Again, because I'm the Hortator of all the great houses, I knew exactly where to find her. Ascending to the upper tower and ultimately Thorana's chambers, I cast Frenzy on the sorceress and our battle began. She had quite a lot of health, and she cast a very powerful fire spell that sapped a lot of mine. It was hard to get away from her spells as their proximity had a large area. At one point, she almost got the better of me, but I was able to evade long enough and pop a very efficient regeneration potion. Resuming the fight, I poked and prodded Thorana over and over again until she was defeated. Taking her belongings, I recalled back to Athasi, and she rewarded me with a payout of 10,000 drakes, by far the heftiest payday for this entire questline. Now, for the final 2 writs, I encountered some pretty common bugs. Their names are not dialogue prompts when speaking to any of the guild masters. Without the prompts, the writs are never handed over, and the questline is tricky to progress in. Fortunately, one of the executions can be learned of through asking about Fort Moonmoth. Athasi gave me some basic information about the outpost, and then name-dropped General Larius Varro. Inquiring about Varro, she tells me that the faction has saved the most difficult writ for someone with the appropriate skill. She says that I'm fit for the job, and tells me that the general must be executed. Larius can be found within the fort's interior, tucked away in the back rooms of the barracks. Varro does have some side quests to give the player, which could be a good idea to complete first. Once ready, I cast Frenzy on him and the battle started. Varro is quite the challenging foe. He fights with a 2-handed sword and has a plethora of health. The real issue comes from his ability to heal mid-fight. From a personal experience, it took quite a lot of time and effort to get his HP down, and then, like it was nothing, he gained it all back in a matter of seconds. This happened twice in the fight, and after the second time, I decided to restart the battle and hit him with a powerful frost spell right at the start. This sapped up all of his healing abilities, and from there, I whittled down his HP with my spear. The nice part about the General Varro fight is that, at least for my level, he doesn't hit very hard. His blade was pretty nice though. Temreki, Shackler of Souls, had the enchantments of Absorb Strength and Endurance for 0 to 20 points on touch for 10 seconds, as well as Soul Trap. Once Varro was defeated, I cashed in the writ and was paid out 4,000 gold. For the final contract, I genuinely had no clue how to learn about it through dialogue or any other means for that matter. So by researching the last writ and finding out it was for Baladas Demnavani, a Telvanni wizard based in Nissus, I located him inside of Arvsdrelen and fought my way through the nuisance creatures and undead. At the very top portion of Arvsdrelen, I found Baladas and spoke with him. He wasn't hostile and offered some unique conversation topics. Using console commands, I gave myself the journal entry for his honorable execution and cast Frenzy on the wizard. I was worried that his conjurations and machines in the room with us would attack me as well, but luckily, they remained dormant. Baladas summoned a Storm Atronach, and deciding that I didn't really want to deal with it, I moved the battle into a narrower section. Once he was done casting his spells, he switched to melee combat and I put in the work on him. He had decent amounts of health, but I was able to control him with my spear staggering abilities. Shot after shot, I drained his HP down until he was dead. Looting the corpse, I recalled back to Athasi and told her about Demnavani's execution. She rewarded me with 5,000 gold, and just like that, the Morag Tong questline sort of abruptly ends. There isn't much closure, and there isn't much more to do for the faction beyond this point. One important thing to note is that Mephalah's Daedric Shrine quest actually begins by speaking with a member of the Vivek Morag Tong Hall, but I'm going to leave that for the Daedric Shrine video, as I wanted this one to be primarily focused on the guild's own questline. So, what are my thoughts on the Morag Tong questline? I enjoyed myself. I'm all for mindless executions and fighting, and I also enjoyed the threads of the Webspinner subplot. It was neat to hear about the tensions surrounding the guild and the Dark Brotherhood, and it was also interesting to have them, as well as the cultists, serve as the faction's main enemy. I think I would have liked to have seen a little more story and lore involved with it though. For the writs portion, I was usually given a person and a place, yet not much of the why behind their executions. Sometimes Eno elaborated on a little bit of their backstory and who wanted them dead, but not all of the time. I would have also been interested in sharing some dialogue with Severa Magia and Durus Marius. It would have been nice to hear their sides of the story, as well as their opinions and thoughts on the whole matter, especially coming from the higher ups, similar to what we get in Morrowind's main questline. Overall though, I had fun, and it was neat to see how far the assassin-related questlines have come for the Elder Scrolls games. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on the Morag Tong's questline, and until next time, keep on adventuring.